Welcome traders. In this video we're going to go over the new ZoneTraderPro BloodHound logic that is now complete. And if you are a ZoneTraderPro BloodHound customer, please contact me and I will send you the completed logic file over Skype. That's probably the easiest. So let's start taking a look at what we all have here. What we're looking at on the chart is we're looking at both the entries and the exits for the logic that we have programmed in. And basically what you see is you see that there's a green racing stripe here, red one here, red one here, green one here. And what that's indicating is that we've had a price pattern along with an order flow pattern, and you can see the results. Right here we have a green line in the indicator panel, and that is because the stop got hit on this trend trade. And just one small note that I didn't know, you can only have racing stripes coming from one of the indicator instances, so that's why this racing stripe right here only paints down in the indicator area. It doesn't paint up here in the main chart area. So that was something that I learned that was new today. Now let's take a look at the logic solvers. So we come up here to the top of the chart and we click the ZoneTraderPro logic, and the first thing that we want to look at is the solvers. Now what is super important about BloodHound is that all of your numbers and all of your settings match. I can't stress that enough. I have made numerous mistakes and seen many problems in the logic that I created when numbers didn't match, and you're wondering why the chart is showing what it was, but in fact what was happening is that the numbers in the solvers didn't match what was on the chart. So it's very important, I can't stress that enough, that you go and make sure that when you settle on a group of values that you just make sure that all of these values are the same. So the first part of the solver in the default template is our tick chart solvers, and basically what we're looking for, these ones that say 150 tick, they're referring to a zigzag that is set to 1.5, and the 500 ticks are referring to a zigzag that's set to 2.5. There's also a solver down here for a time block, and the time block solver is kind of important because what you're looking at here is you're looking to eliminate signals when you don't want to be taking a trade. Well, what is really important about that is that this solver is set to 0930 to 1600 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're in a different time zone than Eastern Standard Time, you need to come to this indicator right here and do some adjustments so that you are getting the correct times in there and not the Eastern Time if that's where you're going to be trading from. Then in the solver down here, I have solvers for a 4-range volumetric chart, and I have solvers for a 5-range volumetric chart. Then if we go to the logic that I have, the two that are the most important, is that we have an entry logic here and we have an exit logic here. The entry logic, just like it sounds, was actually fairly easy to construct, and basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking for any of the 4 price patterns that I would normally be trading, and that would be the trend trade, the reversal, the exhaustion, and the broken reversal. If there is another price pattern such as the counter trend trade, the strong trend, or the strong trend reversal, then by all means you can create another solver by coming up to here and coming to the default time frame, finding that solver. So if you wanted a strong trend trade, you could add that strong trend trade right here and then follow the logic that we have right there, and then you could see the strong trend trade. So in order to have that strong trend trade hooked up, all we would do, put that solver there, connect it to this OR node, and then connect it to this OR node, and then take a look at our chart and see if we did anything different. Now we had a strong trend trade here, but evidently we didn't have a strong trend trade with any order flow. And now after coming back to the chart, I look and I'm asking myself, why didn't a strong trend trade show up here? Now I already know by looking at the order flow chart that there was order flow here when I did this. So I should see an entry signal right here. So let's go back and look what was the problem. And it's usually going to be that you've done something wrong. And right away I can tell that what I did wrong the first time is that I chose the wrong solver. I chose the solver for a 6-tick zigzag instead of choosing the solver for the 10-tick zigzag. So we come back here, find the correct solver for a strong trend trade, connect that up. Then we want to make sure, we want to see what our settings are. We can come to here and we can see that our settings are set to enabled, and that's really the only setting that, and the warning distance is set at a 4. So that's really the only settings necessary there. We come back, look at our chart, and lo and behold, we do have our strong trend entry signal there. Like I said earlier, if you see something that you believe should be showing you a bloodhound signal, it's most likely that you've made an error in how you've gone about setting up the bloodhound. So that's real important. Now, if we were going to set the exit logic for that, we would come to here, and here's our exit logic. Now our exit logic is much more complicated than our entry logic. The exit logic first is looking for any type of order flow signal that we have, the same 8 signals that we have on the entries. But this becomes more complicated because what we're looking for here is we are looking for the warning that we were just previously talking about. But we also have to know that we have a valid trade to begin with, because if we don't have a valid trade to begin with, we don't want the warning to be firing off, giving us a trade in the opposite direction. So that's the purpose of this right here. And then the last thing going in before the result is the time blocker. So if we were going to add in a solver node for the warning, we would again come to the default time frame and we would look for the strong trend trade warning, which there isn't one. So we need to go back and we need to create that. Now in order to do that, we come back to our solvers, and I find the easiest way to do this is take the trade that we're going to be duplicating, say copy. So here that is, here's that copy, and always the first thing you want to do is change the name of that. So this is a strong trend warning. Now the next thing that we have to make sure is that our warning is set to the same numbers as the trade itself. So we look here to ST for strong trend, it's enabled and the warning is set for 4. We make sure that the strong trend is enabled and set to 4 also. So since both of these are good to go, we come back here, the settings are fine. Now we just need to tell Bloodhound what to look for. So we come here and we say that we want to find the strong trend trade warning. We click those and we say OK. We now have a strong trend trade warning solver. So what we want to do is we want to drop that onto the chart. And we want to place that up here with the other warnings. And then this is the easy part. We just connect that to that OR node. Now the hard part is going to be that we have to duplicate all of this down here, which is to create the trade itself. We have to then send it through an inverter. We have to multiply that, and we have to give it a 1 bar delay. And then we got to hook it up to this 1 bar delay. We have to toggle it. So I'm going to go ahead and create the other portions of this that we need. We're going to need the strong trend trade. Come up to existing nodes, strong trend, put that here. We need an inverter. Put that here. We need a product, which is a long short modifier. We need a 1 bar delay, which is a look back. We need to give it its own OR node. Right here. And we need to give it a toggle. Which we'll put right here. Now, we can start by connecting these things up. That's the easy part. And once we have everything connected up, what we want to do is we want to make the settings, which need some adjusting, we want to make the settings the same. So we come over here to the right side of the chart, we look at that, and all the settings for the inverter are fine. We click on the one above it and we click on the one we installed. We don't need to make any changes. We do need to make changes for the long short modifier, and so we're going to first give it a name. We're going to call it the product. And then we need to have these, need to have enabled long true true. So the mode needs to be changed from swap to product. So we'll change that. The 1 bar delay, we have that. We'll just change the name to 1 bar look back. And we're good there. See if our toggle needs anything, which it's going to need. The toggle is going to need changing. So we look here, and what's going to need to be changed is the force on, force off. So we need off, on, off. And we connect that up into the AND node. And it looks like we're good there. We're going to need another AND node up here. we're going to take the strong trend trade, plug it in up there, and then that gets taken down into the toggle down there. And now our toggles should look pretty identical. And now it looks like we have a completed strong trend trade there and available. So what we want to do is we want to now make sure that the strong trend trade is working. So since that strong trend trade was obviously successful, we're going to need to find one that lost. Here's two more strong trend trades, but both of them were successful. Now here I found a strong trend trade, but it occurs outside of market hours. So let's come back to the solver and very quickly take out the time block. So now we've located, wasn't all that easy, but we've located a strong trend trade here that gave us an entry and then should have given us an exit warning. So back to the original statement, if there's something you expect to see and you don't see it, it's most likely because you did something wrong. In this case, I did something wrong. So we're going to come up to the ZTP logic and look for that. Okay, so when we go to look for what the problem was, I see that what I didn't do the first time was connect the volumetric up to this AND node right there, and that's the only thing that's obvious to me immediately. So let's take a look at what that does, and that didn't solve our issue. So I'm going to pause the video and see if I can figure out what the other issue could be. And after pausing the video, I noticed that one of the things I forgot to do was to take this OR node up to the 1 bar delay here, or correctly bring it down from the 1 bar delay into the OR node. Okay, and after a few minutes of looking through the logic, I figured out what the problem was. The problem was that down here when I connected the toggle, the OR needed to be coming into the bottom leg of the toggle, and the AND needed to be coming into the top of the toggle. And again, the way I figured that out was what was different about all of these other ones is that where that line came in was from this OR node was on the bottom. I went ahead and switched those, and then the signal appeared, and there's our stop signal right there, now working properly. Now that we have that working properly, we want to come up, do a save, and we've now gone and added that back in. Now we want to hook back up our time block here, and we want to hook back up our time block on the entry logic. Again, come back, save the file, and we've now gone ahead and added the strong trend to the mix also. So if you'd like to see some of these others, again, you now know the process for going through and doing that. One of the other interesting things about doing this exercise that I just did right here is I had a very hard time finding a strong trend trade that had order flow with it that failed. And as you can see, I needed to take the chart back several days to actually find one of those. But what I did notice is that there were multiple ones of these trades that worked before going back several days and finding one that didn't. And that's the whole purpose of having the BloodHound software and the ZoneTrader Pro BloodHound enhancement is you might find things like I have done here, that when you go and combine the order flow signals with the price patterns, you might find that to be an extremely profitable pattern. As I've talked about on previous videos, I want to see what the ratio numbers are going into these, and it would also be interesting now to see, we can go and we can pick out specifically one type of trade and then look at just how that trade does. So if we wanted to do that, what we do is we come up to here, and here's our entry logic, and we would say make a copy. So now I've made a copy of this. Now what I want to do is I want to find all of the strong trend entries. So let's come back, change the name to strong trend, and now let's get rid of all of our other trades that are on this chart. So now we're only looking for the strong trend trade, and we can now see that there's an example of a strong trend trade. But we'd have to come and also do that for the stop. So we would come to the stop here, make a copy, and we call that the ZTP strong trend exit. And now do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and get rid of all of the other trading patterns here. Okay, I've gone back and cleaned up the chart now, so that all we're looking at is an exit for the strong trend trades. So we combine that with just the entries on the strong trend trades, and we should only see entries and exits for those. We can see 1, 2, 3, 3 and 1, 3 and 2, 4 and 2, 5 and 2, 6 and 2, 7 and 2. So in a week's period, there were a total of 9 strong trend trades with order flow, and we very quickly saw that we had 7 of them that were successful and only 2 of them that were losers. So again, it just illustrates how good the software is in rapidly giving you some numbers that you can then look at further. And there's one last point I wanted to point out about this strong trend trade that was a loser, and that is the whole reason for the ratios that we have. I put on the test histogram, which is something that is just unique to my use, and what I noticed immediately is that as price rose, the ratio, which is what the test histogram is tracking, was steadily dropping. It had a high here of about 230, 240, and then it had dropped all the way down to about 165, and even lower on this bar, 155. So as price got higher, the ratio was dropping, and then we saw the sell-off, and the ratio dropping is going to be a bad sign, because what that is reflecting is less density from the sellers trying to push this back down. And to do a little bit further in-depth analysis of this, we see that on the 150 tick chart, which has the zigzag set to 1.5, we did have a good ratio here which corresponds to the minor area of resistance here. However, what we see coming down here on the first leg down is we see that the density of the buyers has gone from a minus 21 to a minus 86, meaning that there are more buyers there than there was on the previous leg down. Now on the second leg down, we also see that the sellers in the KP2 number have gone from 865, where the buyers absorbed a lot of contracts, to only a negative 199, and the buyers didn't need to come in and absorb that much density here. So, and as we look back at about that exact same price on this last leg down, that's where we see the number of 111, which is roughly in line with the support that ended up taking the market higher. That'll wrap up this video. If you have any questions, be sure to give me a call. In the very near future, there's going to be a complete page dedicated to BloodHound where the logic will be able to be downloaded. If you don't have the current logic file as of Wednesday, July 17th, be sure to contact me and I'll go ahead and transfer that to you over on Skype. So take care, have a good day. Thanks for watching.